Hi, my name is Danielle Velez, and I will be doing my presentation on speech and language biomarkers for early Alzheimer's detection. So we'll start off by doing a little bit of background and discuss what is Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a brain disorder that slowly destroys memory and thinking skills. For many individuals, it does also affect them behaviorally. They lose a lot of behavioral skills as well when dealing with Alzheimer's. It is extremely important to study this disease because it is the most common form of dementia. Diagnostic testing for Alzheimer's is also very expensive, and it's not accessible to many people who need these tests. Speech and language biomarkers could provide early detection, in turn affecting treatment plans for patients and patient autonomy. What I mean by this is when someone is diagnosed with early Alzheimer's, it potentially opens up the opportunity for them to join different trials and start medications that might hopefully stop the progression or at least decrease the progression of the disease. And patient autonomy, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects and one of the most important things that someone will gain when being diagnosed with early Alzheimer's is that they will be able to decide what their care plan looks like and how they get to live out the rest of their life. The purpose of this research is to observe what machine learning modules most accurately detect speech and language biomarkers that may be essential in the early detection of Alzheimer's. So I will get into the details a little bit later in this presentation, but just as a broad look into what the research entailed, researchers got recordings of individuals with Alzheimer's and recordings of individuals who are healthy without the disease, and added these recordings into machine learning modules. And they did research to see which machine learning module was most accurate in detecting those individuals who did have early Alzheimer's. The individuals who were observed were all between the ages of 50 and 85 years of age, and between both groups. So in the control of the healthy individuals as well as the individuals with early Alzheimer's, they were all between the ages of 50 and 85. The data was collected in not the most conventional way, in my opinion. The article does not, or the research does not follow any typical study type. For example, case study, cohort study, cross-sectional study. It does not follow those study types because there were not groups of people who received treatments. There were not groups of people who were pulled to the side and made to do these recordings. The researchers used all public data sets. Once they got those public data sets, they put them into the machines and then examined which one was more accurate. There was not an exact sample size reported, and the reason that researchers used public data sets were because they were publicly available and, according to them, very well annotated. The two public data sets that were used in this research are known as Dementia Bank and Address Challenge Dataset. The people, as I mentioned, that were included in the study were individuals with an early diagnosis of Alzheimer's and then healthy individuals in the same age range. The machine learning modules, some people also might know them as AI modules, that were used for this research were known as the support vector machine, the random forest, and the long short-term memory. Every time that the researchers uploaded a recording from the public dataset into these machine learning modules, there were different phases that they all needed to go through. They needed to go through data set gathering, so picking the actual recordings themselves, the extraction of features, and linguistically and phonetically, module training and testing to test the actual learning module itself, and then performance analysis to see how accurately the module determined the early Alzheimer's. For the study, the recordings that were in the public data set consisted of participants narrating summaries of stories, describing pictures, reading passages, having open-ended discussion, and also giving broad pictures of linguistic and cognitive skills. Once they got these, again, they put them into the machines and see the learning modules, and would see how accurate they were at determining early Alzheimer's by using accuracy, precision, and cross-validation. Another interesting thing that the researchers had to do when picking the recordings and going through all of them was noise reduction, background noise reduction, slowing of the videos in terms of how fast the person was speaking, and making sure that all of the recordings were clear and concise. In all of these tests, what was found was that the support vector machine showed an 80% accuracy rate of determining early Alzheimer's. The random forest had a 92% accuracy rate, and the long short-term memory had a 97% accuracy rate of determining individuals with early Alzheimer's. So we can clearly see that the long short-term memory model was the most accurate. And what all of these modules showed us was that using the modules themselves alongside speech and language can in fact detect early Alzheimer's, especially when using the long short-term module. I do agree with this research, and I do believe that is extremely monumental research. I would feel more strongly in my agreement if there were more concrete details provided throughout the entire research, such as sample size and demographics. These are two factors that can drastically skew the results of any research. Factors that I believe should have been included were are accents, dialect, education level, hearing impairment, neurological disorders, and any other outside factor that can impact the way that someone speaks, an individual speaks. And there are very many factors that can go into alongside that. Also, because the researchers were using public data sets, there is potential bias in the groups of people being studied. The way that this research was done does not allow any security of knowing that all types of people and all groups of people with this disease are being represented. With the limitations and the biases being discussed, I do still strongly feel that this research is monumental and very important, due to how inexpensive it is, how accessible it is. Mostly, as I stated in the beginning, giving an individual who has Alzheimer's the autonomy and the control of planning out what they want their care to look like, what they want the rest of their life to look like, is extremely, extremely important. This individual just got diagnosed with a disease that essentially takes control away from them. If we are waiting until someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's in the late stages, they're not going to have any control over what their care should look like. And so I feel because of those reasons, I do agree with the research. And if those factors are set in and different study types, such as case studies, cohort studies, were used, it would only make the research even better, in my opinion. Thank you.